Always to be, always seems to be. There we go. Sorry, technical difficulties. Okay, welcome to my stream of consciousness. This is my very first episode of this particular live stream. And basically, the gist of this is we're just going to get in here and take a look at the news. I'm going to pull up the MSM news aggregator and we're going to go with that. So let's get into it right now. Okay. We're just going to focus on this little particular window for the most part. Starting off, Andy Serkis calls Kingdom of Planet of the Apes story mind-blowing. I'm a big fan of Rise of the Planet of the Apes and all the subsequent movies. But one thing I really hope that they do touch in on this new movie, which is supposed to be out, I think, in 2024, is that if you ever paid attention to the background dialogue in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, you'll hear talk about a mission to Mars and how the spacecraft that goes to Mars was lost in space. They don't know where they went. And as well, this ship was supposed to be using a new experimental propulsion system. If you ever saw the original Planet of the Apes, it's centered around a group of astronauts who were using a faster than light or near light speed propulsion system. And it resulted in them traveling in time to like 3,900, so like 2,000 years into the future. But to bring this whole series of the new Planet of the Apes franchise back full circle, they have to bring in this lost spaceship who will come back in the future to a Earth where humanity is gone. Essentially, all human civilization is long and buried, and it has been replaced by this civilization of intelligent apes. So I'm really hoping that they hit on that. But self-proclaimed feminist reveals why she quit the movement and started standing up for men instead. Honestly, men don't necessarily need standing up for, but I do see that there is an inequity in how particularly higher education is being provided to humans of the male gender. And I do think that needs to change, but yeah. Totally unconstitutional. DC government providing housing based on race. Come on, guys. We can't be doing that kind of thing. Part of the reason why we chose to make laws colorblind was so we wouldn't be pitting one group against the other. This is doing just that. Well, I haven't seen John Wick chapter 4 yet. Do want to see it, so I don't even want to get into that one. Not interested necessarily. Who do they think Elon Musk agrees on this? The current banking turmoil has revived the ghosts of the 28,000 or 2800 2008 financial crisis. While the great unity around support for Green War is showing its cracks, blah, blah, blah. Elon Musk sees himself as a global CEO or whatever. Okay. He gives his opinion on all issues without exception, blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Musk continues to take his role of agitator by positioning himself as the standard bearer for those who are determined to demolish progressive values in the new culture war. He gave a name to the enemy, the woke mind virus. I don't like using the word woke because it doesn't. It's not specific really, but mind virus is a accurate description for what we have going on. And if you want to know what mind virus is, basically it comes from a book. By Richard Dawkins, Viruses of the Mind. And if you want more information on that, I would read that book by Richard Dawkins. But yeah, it's a good description for what is occurring, mind virus. A catch-all expression that encompasses gender identity, diversity, blah, blah, blah. In relationship to Elon Musk, they're saying that the word woke is a catch-all expression that encompasses gender identity, diversity in all its forms, and ESG, the environment, social, and corporate governance investment strategy, which is supposed to focus on stakeholders instead of shareholders. It is with this in mind that the billionaire just weighed in on 3 responsible parties for the problems currently affecting Americans. Millions of people refuse to return to work despite the calls of CEOs like JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon, who believe that the corporate culture is being lost with remote work. This new situation was caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, which forced the authorities to impose lockdowns. The divisions in American society have also deepened between progressives and conservatives, leaving little room for centrists. For a few weeks now, a banking crisis, the biggest since 2008, has shaken up investors and has already led to the failure of 3 U.S. banks: Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and Silvergate Bank. Doubts persist about the soundness of many regional banks. The irony is that this crisis has its roots in the measures put in place in the monetary policy to avoid a recession when COVID hit. The Federal Reserve at the time cut interest rates to almost zero, and the federal government flooded the households with money via stimulus packages. I'll tell you right now, literally within weeks of the Federal Reserve deciding to do this, I expressed at work that this was going to lead to inflation, and I was ridiculed by a certain cohort of people that I worked with. This led to banks to invest in treasury bonds and municipal bonds whose returns were attractive. However, these banks did not protect themselves from the risk that interest rates might go up, a prospect that would again make money expensive. So they're basically saying that Elon Musk is blaming these things here. This is one of the things I dislike about a lot of articles out there is they never really get to the point. Whatever. Musk thinks the federal policy as far as the COVID and Ukraine war. Nope, Stonehenge isn't an ancient calendar after all, scientists say. What do they say it is? blah, 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 blah. Very presence invites speculation, blah, 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 blah. As, blah, 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 blah. Now, Polytechnic University of Milan mathematician, don't ask me to pronounce that name, an astronomer at Bell from the Institute of Astrophysics of the Canary Islands, Spain, have countered Darvol's claim, stating it is based on a series of forced interpretations, numerology, and unsupported analogies with other cultures. What we think Stonehenge is really a small part of the total archaeology of this at the site, long before the famous stones were put into place. It was an important burial ground for cultures near and far. So they think it's a burial ground. Could be. Hey, Arby's has crispy fish and small fries. Well, James Gunn breaks silence. Let's see. What does he have to say about this? 2 hours and 20 minutes? So what? Okay. Is that really worth a news article? I don't know. Well, I'm pretty tired of language rules in general. I grew up in a period where you could literally, as long as you weren't calling for harm against somebody, you could pretty much say whatever you wanted. Oh God, they're still running this article. His explanation of the fourth dimension really wasn't that insightful. And even for I guess 15, whatever his age was at the time, you could have picked that up from multiple movies. His explanation, but what I found in my study of theoretical physics, the general theory of relativity, special theory of relativity, quantum mechanics, and all that, is that understanding the concepts isn't what's hard. It's the math. It really comes down to the math. Do you have that foundation in geometry, trigonometry, and calculus that allows you to understand the math? Vast majority of people, boom, goes right over their head. Who cares who Elon Musk is dating? If you are 55 years old, this straight, oh, it's an ad, never mind. Well, I don't know. I have found as an IT manager that many Gen Z people have an inflated view of their own intelligence and their own knowledge. And when it comes down to it, some legacy technology that is still widely used in the workplace is completely alien to them. I had to explain recently to a Gen Z what carbon copy and blind carbon copy were and what the difference between the two were. And that should be their generation that completely understands that stuff. Well, because we live in a society that doesn't emphasize personal responsibility anymore. We're all victims to something. Well, unless you're of a particular gender or a particular ethnic demographic. Been going on for 15 minutes here, and this is just a short. My stream of consciousness videos are never going to be longer than 20-30 minutes. So let's just kind of go through what's out here for the rest of the news and see what we got. I've got to say, the Picard season 3, oh my God, it's so much better than seasons 1 and 2. It really feels more like Star Trek, instead of, a soap opera, a space opera that doesn't have, that only has about this much to do with Star Trek. Let's see here. What else we got? Yes, I'm in Valley Center, Kansas. There you go. And don't expect the Pentagon to release that kind of information because they actually don't have it. My theory is every time there's some world event or something that, now, do I believe that aliens, extraterrestrial beings exist? Absolutely. The math supports it. Just look up the Drake equation, Drake equation. Now, you got to also look at the Fermi paradox as well in relationship to the Drake equation, but the math supports the idea that there are other intelligent beings in our galaxy. Now, one thing I will say is I've always been somewhat critical of SETI because they make this grand assumption that they're going to use radio waves, and there's no evidence whatsoever that an interstellar capable civilization would use radio waves for communication. And as well, a pre-space excuse me, civilization such as ours, or let me phrase it this way, a civilization that hasn't achieved interstellar travel and just communicates with other people using radio waves on their own planet. Okay, think of it this way. When we peer out into space with our telescopes and we look at stars, do we see the planets? The answer is no. The way we detect planets is we look for dimming of the light as a planet passes between our telescopes and that star, and it will create a slight dimming. And we also look for the minute wobble in the star as planets orbit around it. And you've got a center of a solar system, and then you've got the star, and the star usually orbits in a little bit of a wobble around the center of a solar system. And that center is created as a summation of all of the gravitational forces in that solar system. And we're able to deduce, based on the dimming of a star and the wobble of the star, the different planets that might exist. The James Webb Space Telescope is the first telescope we've had that's really going to really be able to effectively observe planetary bodies in other solar systems. But even then, it's going to be pretty low resolution. The whole SETI concept or program has really been based on the idea that we're going to be able to take the radio waves that are being emitted from a solar system and differentiate the radio waves that are emitted from a planet against the very immense amount of radio waves that are being emitted by that planet's star. And it's going to be extremely difficult, but technically kind of possible, but it's going to be really hard. You're going to have to weed through a lot of noise to be able to find that signal. And if it's not strong enough, you're never going to hear it. Radio waves are part of the EM spectrum. So is light. And if you can't see a planet because the star is too bright, what makes you think you're going to see the radio waves from that planet or hear the radio waves from that planet when the star itself also puts out a bunch of radio waves at far, far greater intensities than all of the radio signals on that planet? So I've always been, in theory, I'm totally on board with SETI, but practically, oh my God, I just don't see how it's going to work. What would have to happen is they would have to focus a signal directly towards our star, and we pick up on that intense signal that's being projected directly at us. Otherwise, we're probably not going to hear it. I don't know. All right, well, it's been 21 minutes. I'm going to bring this to an end. But yeah, if you watch, thanks for watching. Otherwise, hope to hear, hope somebody picks up on this later. And if you have any ideas for topics we can talk about, that would be great. But I'd like to stick to the current events. What is the news today? There will probably be some time. I will go ahead and bring up some topics that I've heard about or have interested me. But for the most part, I'm just gonna talk about the news of the day. All right, guys, y'all take it easy now. Peace out.